Hey everybody. So on this episode of Mr. Fix, middle of winter here, well, start of winter, and you know, this machine, relative of mine, had some issues with it. It wouldn't fire up at the beginning of the season. So this is a Craftsman Tecumseh style carburetor. So unlike the Arians one that we kind of like went through, which is a little bit easier to start. So how do you diagnose this? It doesn't start, doesn't want to do anything. So you know what I like to do is let's check for spark. So you can use one of those spark plug testers. That's fine. It did work. You want to be 100% sure? Take off the spark plug. Use your carburetor cleaner. Spray it in. Put the plug back. Put it back on. And see if it fires up. In this case, it did fire. So it fired up, went, and then it conked out. So what's that telling me? It's telling me that there's a fuel problem here as far as delivery. So more than likely it's the carb. Now, this one here, I did change. It was a garbage find. We did change the carburetor because it was really bad. Ran for about a year, 2 years. But I have a feeling that we're going to go through the whole thing. So we're going to clean out the gas tank, clean that all out, clean the line out, take the carb off, clean the jet. Okay? And these ones are a little bit different than the Arians, but we're going to take one step at a time. I'm going to show you how it's done. Now, first things first with this, in order to stop the flow, what we want to do is lower the gas tank lower, so that way we can empty it. So the easiest one to do is there's two bolts at the top that I've already loosened. You're going to take those off, and then lift the tank off, and then we're going to put it aside, and then we're going to drain it. There's this little guy here, the choke. This comes off. Just remove it off. That one's gone. From there, 2 screws here. Top one here, and one here. Now that comes off. One other thing that you're going to have to do is to undo the chute, or else this won't come off. So once that's done, get off. Now what's here is there's going to be 2 access things here. The back one could be a little bit difficult to find because it's kind of like buried in there, but with an extension and or a Phillips, we'll be able to kind of like undo it. Get a pair of pliers. You're going to undo the fuel line that's there. Get a flat, get the hose off. Take note of where that linkage is. So once you do this, you'll have a little bit more flexibility. You'll have a little bit more flexibility on angling this and taking it off. So once you have the carb off, use some gloves, carb cleaner. It's a 7/16. So remember on one of these guys here, this one, the little guy with the spring on it, it's like a clean out. So when you push it in, you're gonna get all fuel coming out. So be careful taking it off. Okay, this is what we got to clean up. This, when we take this off, now take note because you got to remember that because it's like a little float system, you got to make sure that you do it accordingly, and the float kind of has more room on it. So take note of how it goes because the float will kind of go up and down, and if you get it out in reverse, it won't work. So we're going to clean all this out. We're going to spray all this. I'm going to spray all this, get very nicely done, okay? But the main thing that you want to concentrate on is this jet, okay? Now, put the washer there. Now, what happens here is this adjusts. So you got to take note on exactly the distance. Now, you can measure it, or you could screw it in, or whichever. Take note of that number. And then, because you're going to use it afterwards, okay? So some people, what they'll do is they'll screw it all the way in, and then they'll count how many revolutions to go in, so then they know how many go out, okay? So when you get that, you're going to be able to see all that. We got to clean that jet, the hole right out. Now I can see a little bit through it. This one, the needle, don't worry about it because this doesn't do much. We can just kind of wipe the top of it and whatever, but we'll clean it all out either way. If you got a piece of metal, go in there. I'm pretty confident that's pretty good like that. And once you've cleaned it well, you want to get a wire, clean it out also. I don't know if you can see it. There's a hole right, you can't see it because of whatever. There's a hole right above. So there is a little bit of a hole right above, and if you see that, that's where it is here. So this is really, really thin. And I can see it from the inside that I've gone through. So that's good. That's a very small one, and that could cause some problems here. Let's get that. That's good. So we put this back, make sure everything's back in place. But I kind of did this shot. Looks very clean. So like I said, you got to make sure that when you drop this, the vacant piece is kind of like, so it has a place to drop. So once you know exactly where it goes, then we can put it back together. Okay, next step, we'll install just like we did before. We're gonna empty out the gas tank, spray it, clean it, put fresh fuel in it, and then we're also gonna spray the hose from this side all the way to the carb, spray it out, make sure it's nice and clean. All right, guys, so just to recap, now there's nothing really difficult about this stuff. It's just you got to make sure that everything's cleaned in that carburetor to get it going. So sometimes it took me 2-3 times to take a look at it and make sure that it was going. In the end, another problem that we had was that I found that I looked at when I was putting it together. So why is it going? Why is it sputtering? Because when I went to go put the fuel tank back on, there was a kink the way that I had it. So it was starving the engine. So as soon as I adjusted that, you saw with the video, fired right up and went good. So the key sometimes is the jet. I took the bowl off, not the bowl, the float. Took the float off with the needle in there, cleaned that all up, sprayed it. It's a relatively new carb, so this was only bad fuel. I can't stress enough. Put premium fuel. At the end of the season, run it dry or fill it up and put the stabilizer in it. Or else you're gonna have these problems when you start up at the season, all right? So good luck to you, and feel free to ask me any questions if you guys are out there and having some issues with these machines. And thanks for watching, Mr. Fix.